We've got quite a few things we're going to go through with Suvash and Chi, and I'm going to kick off by asking each of them to share something of their life before arriving in Australia and any experiences that may have shaped their subsequent life path.
So I grew up in a very small town in China. So it's one interesting about that town is ranked like the top 3 polluted city across the whole world. So that's where I grew up. And then yeah, so I think one thing special about myself is I kind of lucky or not, also very unlucky, because my parents, they went to southern China to a factory. So pretty much I and my sister, we live by ourselves when I was at high school and end of middle school. So it's kind of like both of us and another people who look after us, cooking for us. So basically I live by myself. So I think that's a very early days. That's very rare in China. Well, that's pretty. It's not common that you do have get such a freedom. So you have to think about what really you want. So I think in early stage I have to really think about what really I want, what I want to do. So that has of course that has keep changing where you grew up. And before I went to university, I know that I'm interested in programming. So I start learn programming, all this stuff. That's why I started this one. And yeah, and universities. So I pretty much even make sure what I read. So I'm interested in programming, but what's you really interested? So I'm interested in computer system. I want to understand how the CPU works and how the whole system works. And all of this looks like a black box magic to me. So I want to know what's happened to that one. And it's lucky enough that when I grew up, when I was in university, that's already 2004 and 2008. So at that time in China has imported a lot of books in English. And so in China, it's very, very cheap price, like towards like $10 US. You can buy a like $100 US book in China, like computer architecture books. So I think same happened in India. So I'm lucky that I can bought those books and read them, learn that one, and make sure, okay, I want to go further. Or I want to, and that time I got interested in operating system, and then UNSW, there is a very good operating system group, is in Gernot's group. So I'm a final year, so I asked Gernot, say, I'm interested in this operating system. I have some ideas. I want to come here to do an internship to finish my undergraduate thesis, and whether it's possible or not. So at that time, I was like just dreaming, right? So I never know that whether it's possible. These are kids from nowhere, from China. And then Gernot reply emails, oh yeah, come here. Okay, so then that's why, and the final 3 months of my undergraduate study, I got the chance to came to Sydney, barely speak good English, like because it's interesting. I learned all the English by reading those technical books. So I never know their correct pronunciation, right? So, but anyway, I came here, and that's where, yeah, that's roughly a path where from early stage to when I arrived Australia in 2008.
Wow, thanks, Chi. That's an amazing backstory there. Suvash, would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience before arriving in Australia?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I'd like to thank for having me here. Yeah, I grew up in Kathmandu, Nepal. Pretty much all of my childhood I spent in Kathmandu, Nepal until my until my undergraduate, and moved to Australia. So the very interesting thing about me, like specifically like coming from Nepal, like a very underdeveloped country, with very so one interesting thing, like when I was growing up, like in and studying in undergrad, we used to have very limited internet connectivity. I remember having 128 kbps of internet. So for me, internet was very crucial for my personal growth. And I guess I will credit internet and some of the material available back then in internet that encouraged me to like join ANU and specifically pursue my career in machine learning. I clearly remember downloading, going to a friend's house who had like very high speed internet to download content from MIT OCW, which has content on linear algebra, and specifically downloading some YouTube lectures from Andrew Yang from his Stanford courses, which opened me to this amazing world of machine learning. and that made me so passionate about machine learning and like make me think about pursuing this as a career. Besides that, one thing I always find it funny is like when I moved to Australia, everyone used to ask me, "Have you been to Everest?" And but I've never been to Everest.
Great, thanks for that. That's an amazing background too. The two of you just really have a really interesting backstories. Now, my next question for you both is if you could say something about your decision to do PhDs. So you're both in industry positions, and some people might think, oh, well, when I finish my bachelor's, I might go and try and work somewhere like Google or Twitter or somewhere like that. But you decided to go and do a PhD, and some people might think, oh, PhD is all about becoming an academic. Can you just say a little bit about your decision about why you decided to do a PhD and how that related to your decision ultimately to take the position that you're in now in industry? Maybe Suvash, you could kick off on that one.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned like it all started with watching all the YouTube videos and lectures, which made me really fascinated about the modern approach to machine learning. And I was really fascinated by the so I was looking for like my postgraduate opportunities, and specifically in the US and Australia. I have a couple of my seniors who went to Australia, not ANU, but some other universities in Australia, and I've heard really good things about them in terms of their experience. And some of the folks were like were doing PhD as a part of NICTA and some other universities. So I spoke with them, and they really said like really great things about PhD research and opportunities in Australia. And for me, I looked up into the great faculty member at the ANU, and it was really fascinating, all the amazing things that was happening in NICTA in the area of machine learning and ANU. That just captivated me, and I thought, okay, I'll just go ahead and apply for the program. I didn't plan as such, like whether I want to do research or not, but it was just like I just went with the flow, and here I am.
Fantastic. Hugh, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I think for doing the PhD has always been my. I mean, so actually, in the beginning I didn't think about doing or not doing PhD. What I really think about, okay, here is the computer system stuff. I really want to do something about that one, and I want to. The first one is I want to learn more. The second one is I want to explore some like unknown world. That has been my dream. So it doesn't really matter where. It's just any place I can go. That would be great, right? So as long as there's an environment, do that. Go to like, and when I, I think beside that one, let me share a very quick story. So when I grew up, I was so lucky that when I grew up that period, we got some engineers who work in US big companies, and they have an online form, and there's a bunch of students there. So there's one guy who actually taught me a lot, and I asked him about what I should do. And cause when you are young, you just anxious, like maybe should I go there? Should I do that? Should I do that? And he told me, forget about that. It's not important. After you grew up, they just gone. You don't worry about that one. So what you do, focus the stuff. Like if you do computers system, you focus on computer architecture. You have to understand the bottom stuff. Once you do that, here's good books, read them 10 times. You're going to understand them, right? And then go to do a PhD, go to do research. Why you do that? It's very simple. That's give you a chance to explore more. And once you get that chance, after you graduate, you go to the industry, you do have, the most important, you do have a footstep, like say, okay, I want to do something interesting. After you finish your PhD, there's a chance. If you go to the industry as an undergraduate, it's possible, but it's way less likely to, the company won't give you a chance. Okay, here's undergraduate kids, and let's give him a platform, let him to explore some problem. But if you finish your PhD and if you done a good job, and it's so lucky that in our computer systems we do have a big industry, right? And they have no time to fix a lot of fundamental problems. And if you go there and they say, okay, look, you have done something for a PhD. Oh, we have some problems here. Can you just look them? So you're gonna have that chance. That chance, if you don't do a PhD, you'll probably miss that one. And if it's very, very hard, if you go to companies directly after your undergraduate, you make good money, but the problem, you lose that chance. And another most important thing, I think I learned a lot from the David Patterson, who is a very famous computer scientist. He gave a talk about how to have a bad career, right? And he lists that one. So finish your PhD as soon as you can, right? Go to finish your undergrad, go as soon as you can to go to the industry. And but that's a bad advice. The reason is that once you turn your 40s or maybe 50s, like 3 or 5 years difference, you go to the industry earlier or later, just becoming a round of error, right? And like it's really, but when you were 20s, you think 3 years, that's so long. But once you 40 into 50, 3 years so short. Think about that. That's 3 years, you get the chance. It's like an investment, right? Your scholarship pretty low, but after these 3 years, you do a very bright future. And I'm so sad that we get so many top undergraduates at NU, and they even never think about doing PhD. I'm not saying that they should do a PhD, but at least they should put that one in the table and think about that one. Like for me to, come to NU was actually a quite accident, because I was rejected by the UNSW. And then I was looking, okay, is there any place I can do in Australia that I can have a computer system group? And we do have one. And I came here where I met Steve. That was so lucky, right? Sometimes if you're rejected by a place where you originally want to go, that's maybe a good thing, because even better ones waiting for you. But the key point is you know what you want to do. That's very important. Yeah.
All right, well, that's a great segue to the next question I wanted to ask you both. Now, when we have alumni talks, it's not uncommon for us just to focus on all the positives and all the wonderful things that have happened. But I know that, you're not shy about telling us where things went wrong. And I know Suvash was happy to share a few things, I think. So I wonder if you could just spend a moment, just a very brief amount of time, saying 1 or 2 things where things didn't go right, and how that ultimately where that ultimately has led you. So basically some of the experiences that didn't go right in your career. Would you like to kick off quickly, briefly?
Oh yeah. So I think recently the 2 big failures I got is in 2018 when I ran out my scholarship, and I have a family. My wife started her PhD, and we had a daughter. So I had to figure out a way to make some money, right? And then the big companies keep inviting me actually to work there, but I couldn't pass their interview. Right. And then that's kind of like frustrated. But then after the failures is like that, accept that one and then keep moving. And you're gonna have other ways. You won't die, right? Just patient. That's why where I go to a very nice small startup, which I won't win there if I pass Google interview. So sometimes failures is not that bad for your life journey. So yeah.
Suvash, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I have similar experience. So when I was doing my PhD, I was looking for internship opportunities, and mostly looking for a tech internship, more towards the engineering aspect of the more towards the engineering aspect. And pretty much I failed in most of the internship interview, but so in a retrospect, and also besides that, like in PhD, when you submit papers, you get rejections, and at first it's so painful, right? Like you work so hard on it, and then you get rejection. But looking back, I feel like what's the best thing about PhD is it teaches you to embrace failures so gracefully. And once you embrace it more gracefully, you start learning from your mistakes and iterate on that. I think that is just an amazing experience about PhD.
Oh, wonderful. That's a great perspective. Thank you for that. And that actually takes me to a segue. I'm going to jump to a question that I think there might be some of our students on the call watching the recording who want to know something a bit more about how interviews work. So I wonder if you could say something very broadly about the process for and applying for the sort of job that you have, or the sort of job that you may have had before your PhD. So if you could say something about it, perhaps from your perspective as an applicant, and then now I know, Suvash, you've had a lot of experience in the last few years as the interviewer. Maybe you could just say a few words, particularly thinking of the students who are in the audience.
Yeah, so I can first talk about the process when I was like the interviewer. Uh, um, so I think the key thing about preparing for interviews, like specifically for so there are two classes of like interviews that, specifically that I like interviewed when I was like looking for a job. So one was like purely industrial research position. One was like more towards like engineering, machine learning engineer position. So the first thing I think is the most important thing is to prepare like what you are like what the company is looking for. So I think that's the most important thing. So that will help you to prepare well for the interview. So if it is a research position, so you have to focus more towards the research aspect of the interview, because interview can differ from like when you're interviewing for a research lab versus like software engineering or machine learning engineer role. I can give more talk. I can talk more about the machine learning engineer or engineering aspect. So there are several things. So basically, I can give you the overview of interviewing at Twitter. So first of all, you go through this phone screening where you go through a simple programming challenge, and after that, the company makes a decision whether to bring the person in like on site. Now everything happens remote, so like virtual on site to go through the like 4 rounds of interview. So I think initially I like did pretty bad in most of the interviews. That was mostly because it's not that I couldn't solve the problem. It was more that I had a different mindset. I would go to the interview feeling nervous and thinking like the problems are hard. They are going to ask you a hard problem. And what happens is when you go with that mindset, you start over complicating things and you run out of time. So thinking about like now I've interviewed like so many people. So, and I see this as a common mistake, which I've done like when I was interviewing with companies. One thing I would like to advise student is like, don't think the person who is interviewing is like critiquing you. He's think your interviewer as a colleague who has solved a problem, who is ready to help you through in the process, but not ready to give the whole answer. So it's more like a colleague in your classroom. Another thing is like prepare for the interviews, because the format is like it's a limited time format. Like for instance, you prepare for the exams, you should prepare similarly for the interviews, specifically for problem solving, because speed is important. More specifically, like you have like 45 minutes to solve a simple problem. And if you get the foundations right, nobody asks you hard questions. And believe me, all of the people who are interviewing are also gone through a lot of failures and rejections. So they understand the pain. So just go relaxed. I think once you go relaxed, most like half of the job is done.
Great. Thank you for that advice. That's great advice. Xi, would you like to add anything or comment about your experience?
Yes, because I'm pretty horrible, very bad at doing interview stuff. So I went to a very special route. That here's just let students know that if you there are a special route to go if you have a lot of troubles fighting the interview, but also you think you are a good engineer. So what's the most very important you do? The first one, you need a good connection with the community. With the people inside companies doing, like for example, I'm doing the performance stuff, performance engineer stuff, and then I have been interested in the profiling all of these open source tools. So go there and make yourself becoming a recognized people inside that community. Like for example, I went to work for Twitters because a guy who in our team, he read my research, so he even wrote a blog about my research. And so he invited me to work there. So my key point is that for the students who prepare your CV, the most important thing is you show something you have built, something you are interested, and something you are proud of. Also something that is the most important. In fact, the community, other people know the work, right? And then you're gonna get a lot of special opportunities there. Because the problem when the big company try to hire people, what they go first is always start from their friends and their colleagues, their community, and then they're gonna, if they cannot find one, and then they're gonna enlarge the scope, right? So make sure you are in that circle, and then there are gonna be a ton of companies who some managers gonna have a way to work around interview stuff, put you in if you're really good. So the key point is that know what you want to do and do that very well, get in the community, and then you can get a special pass. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Xi. Now you said something about why you went to Twitter, because someone had approached you who'd written a blog post about your PhD work. Suvash, I wonder if you could say something about what drew you to Twitter.
So one of the reasons, when I was interviewing, I was like, as I mentioned, I interviewed for both research position as well as engineering position. So one of the things that was attractive about Twitter specifically for me was like, I spent 4 years doing research in recommender systems. So Twitter provided that opportunity. When I was interviewing with them and when I finally got the offer, I was matched with the recommendation team. So it gave me an opportunity to use my skill that I've acquired over the 4 years in a real product where I can experiment with things and put good use of the skills that I've acquired, as a PhD student at ANU. And also, like I think deep inside, I had that engineering like in my heart. So I think that attracted me towards Twitter. And also, I think although I don't tweet a lot, I'm a very active Twitter user, like since my PhD days. So I think that was another implicit factor that like drove me towards Twitter.
Oh, great. Now I've got a follow-on a question that's come up in the chat from Alex, and which I think relates to what she was saying and what you've said there, and that is in terms of getting a position like this, she talked about being recognized in the community, and so Alex's question is whether you have any thoughts on how to first get recognized in the community. So Suvash, I might get you to first respond, and then I'll go to she.
So I think like if you're like a PhD student, one way to get like familiar with the community or like get recognized in the community is like you don't have to do great work. Even if you go to a conference, don't sit in the corner. I remember clearly this. My PhD advisor told me, like when I first went for the conference, he said, I don't care if you don't attend all of the sessions, but don't be that guy just who sits in the corner. Anyway, I did that again. I did that, but looking back, I think you can just go and talk to people. I think that always helps. And also reach out to your network. Like I can tell, like I got job at Twitter. Just Leshing had a friend who agreed to refer me at Twitter. So always explore your network within. You don't have to be expert in the field. And also, like I think if you're passionate about something, write blog posts. I think that is always a great thing. Not advocating about Twitter, like Twitter is like very active in terms of all the research community. I think it's a great tool to use to build your online presence. I think basically if you build an online presence, people will notice you. I remember some of the recruiters reached out to me just because I answered something in Quora. So just be active, just be proactive. Don't like restrict your knowledge to yourself, spread it with the world. And I think opportunities will just follow.
That's great. Thanks. Xi, do you have something you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think one, especially for undergrad students, for the people who just started their first year, I would really strongly suggest that try to, before you say how to get recognized, first one, you have to know where your communities are, right? And where you can find those groups. For example, in Canberra, Canberra have a very strong open source Linux kernel group. And we have a bunch of top Linux kernel groups just living here, like Andrew Trejo, all those people, all of ANU graduate, and then they live in Canberra, right? And a lot of people don't know that. But if you know that, then you get a chance to know those guys. So first one, don't wait for like year 3 or year 4 in the beginning in the first year, because a lot of work in the community, there are a lot of simple work you can get involved in. So know where's the community, either open source or local or global, anyone, anything, right? If you want to games engine, there's game engine. That's good for our computers. A lot of them is open source and global span. You can get anything you want. Once you know what you want, once you find the community, the first ones, don't be shy. Don't wait to say, I think I cannot do anything before I become an expert, which is very wrong mindset. The right mindset, okay, oh, there's a great people. They just like me, you know? They love that one. Although I'm not really good at one, but I know that I love this one. So what you do is you get something very simple stuff, start with this one, play with that one, share with your community. And then I think the very important thing that is like, that's also part of why PhD has a good environment, is that if you go to a good community, I would say 99% of people who love doing their work, they also very eager to share their stuff. So they're gonna try to help you actually, like how to say, from their heart. They cannot control by that, right? So if you get involved with that one, they're gonna help you, and then you're gonna grow up. And the job is that once you grow up, you make sure you help other people who just get in the field. Right. It's like the idea is like a DNA. They also want to spread. So, yeah.
That's right. I remember having an experience like that in my PhD, and there was a very generous Scottish professor. And when I made the comment that you just made, he gruffly replied, I thanked him, and he gruffly replied, "Well, make sure that you do the same for your students," in a very stern Scottish accent. But I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Thanks, Xi. Now I'm going to switch topics. Here's a great question. I'm going to go to a question from the chat here. Michael's asking whether either of you had the feeling or experiencing imposter syndrome, or the feeling that you may not be good enough to work among the people who you're with. Xi, would you like to say a few words on that, and then I'll jump to Suvash.
Oh yeah, yes, I have. That's the feeling I have always, right? I remember one year I told the Steve's student, so I told students, so I'm not smart, I'm a stupid guy, and then. And he's a few years ago, his students probably forgot what I said, but I remember that sentence, but which is good, right? I mean, the first ones, I never think I'm good enough. I'm good doing that. I feel that, I'm so lucky that I can work on this, right? I don't think I deserve that one. So that's the very different mindset. If you have that mindset, you don't like if I cannot learn something very well, I just don't think I'm, I just keep doing that. Or I know that I'm not that smart. But the point is that you know what you're good at, right? You know something you're good at. It doesn't need to be smart. It doesn't need to be, for example, I like to write, help the community maintain the document, which is, boring work, but I can do that, and a lot of people won't do that. So I know I'm good at that. So find something that you are special. That is a way. I think that's a way for me to escape the thinking about, okay, why I'm smart or not smart, why I'm not good enough. I'm thinking, okay, I have my position in this area, so I just do what I can do. Yeah.
Right. And I'll just interject here as your PhD supervisor, and let the audience know that despite Xi's humility here, he's one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. So take all he says there with a little bit of a grain of salt. I'm going to go to Suvash now and ask him what he's experienced of imposter syndrome.
I totally agree with what she said. I also I still struggle with that, at times, but I think it's all about the mindset. You have to set basically, as long as you're willing to learn, nothing else matters. So don't hesitate. No one is expert in everything. The key thing is, as long as you're willing to learn, it doesn't matter. So everyone is learning one way or other way. So don't feel don't hesitate to reach out to people. Don't hesitate to share your ideas. Even sometimes they can be stupid, but if it has to be if it is right once, that's what matters. And also you can be with very smart people, and maybe it takes twice effort than very smart people, but in the long run it actually doesn't matter. So you might have to put twice effort, but at the end, if you can get results, that's what matters.
Well, that's great.
I think one last sentence. I think that's a very good point. I got one last sentence about that one. It's from Richard Hamming's book, and he also writes a very good article about you and your research. But basically, he showed important. The point I want to say, that know what you want to do. That's very, very important. Know that you are on the track, because what he said, if you know what you at least you can go fast or go slow. At least you can do linear to the direction of the time you're spending there, right? If you do not know what you want to go, where you want to go, you do random work, and after like 20 years, you're probably gonna be a square. Like you way, even the guy who know the goal, the learner is way more better than this one, right? So know where you want to go is very important. It doesn't really matter whether you're smart or not. Yeah,
that's great. Thanks, Xi. And I'll say a theme that I noticed in both of your answers that resonates very strongly with me in my experience is this notion of humility and generosity is such a valuable trait. And I can see you nodding there because I know that you've both you're both very much aligned with that. I'd like to now, I think some people will probably want to hear a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis in your jobs. So if you could just spend just a couple of minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, just saying something about what you're doing in, and sorry for stressing the time because I'm conscious that we've got students here who have a class starting in 23 minutes. So I am watching the clock here. If you just say in a minute or two what you do on a day-to-day basis in your work at Twitter, and maybe Suvash, if you could kick off on that one, if you're happy to say that.
Yeah, so I can basically break down the day-to-day life. So 20 to 30% it goes in meeting, planning about what to do next, depending upon like what project you're working on. Then another 50% of like actual implementation, working on things. And then maybe 10-20% of your work would be like reviewing others' code, like others' work, others proposals. I think that's a great way to learn. So I think basically this is the general structure. So like after joining company, I realized the value of collaboration. Being an effective communicator is like extremely important, specifically when you are working in a large company. It's not your brilliance that what matters to make things work. It's more about bringing everyone together and getting things done.
Well, right. Yeah. So I'm in my class, my first year class at the moment, the students are doing a group project, and I know everyone struggles with working in a group of people who you've not met before. But so I try to encourage them that one day when you have a job in a place like Twitter, you'll just be doing group work a lot, right? Is that so? Do you spend most of your time working in groups? Is that Suvash?
Yes.
Yeah.
So most of the time it's like some of the projects I work on are open-ended research projects. So that involves collaboration with the research group who are different skill expertise, and some of with the product team. So and they live in a different time zone. So being able to communicate well, being able to coordinate with them is extremely important. I wish I knew that like when I was in grad school.
Great, thanks. And Xi, would you like to say a little bit about your day-to-day experience?
Yeah, so I'm lucky that I'm in a special like a group where we are not touching the major important part of service, but way more like looking for all of optimization opportunities, and also try to help other people to understand their performance problem. So basically, my work is same as my PhD. So it's try to build a tools that help the people to build a performance mental model about how this complex system works. So my time, I pretty much talk to different peoples from their all of different groups and understand what's their problem, and then I have to figure out, okay, how can we abstract this problem, and how can we build a tool to help everybody understand their problem. So yeah, and in my group, I'm lucky that I pretty much has no meeting. So that's another good thing about working in Australia remote, which is we're gonna our morning, the afternoon, right? After 10 a.m. everybody's gone, so only myself there. So, and I have a short window to communicate with them and then I have a big chunk of time to focus on what I'm going to do and how to do it. But another here the same challenge is that you're gonna work with other people. You have to figure out where the first one, you have to express your idea very clearly, and second one, you have to sell the idea to others and try to address their problem, which is very, very hard, and also the most important stuff, right? Yeah.
Great. Just, from that, I'm going to springboard and go to Suvash and ask him how his experience of remote working is. I mean, see, you just said that one of the joys of remote working from Australia is that is the time zone differences sometimes play to your advantage. Suvash, now everyone here, we're all doing to different extents working remotely, courtesy of the pandemic. How have you found that, Suvash?
So I think there are pros and cons of like remote work. So the pros is like specifically if you live in like a metro area, like commute, you don't have to commute. Like basically, you save around 1.5 hour a day. So I think that's a great save. People with family, I think you get to spend more time with family. And also one thing I really like about remote work is the flexibility it gives you. I think now since companies are like more like companies have experimented with remote work. I think geolocation-based barrier is just a concept now, so it opens opportunity throughout the world. I think that's a great advantage for like the whole tech industry. The cons is I still miss like meeting people in hallway. That doesn't happen when you sit in home. So that is the aspect I miss. I think one challenge is like it's not actually cons is, but one challenge is now the like communication is extremely important. Being able to like communicate in asynchronous fashion when people are living in a different time zone, it becomes very crucial. So I'm still learning that and like trying to improve on that.
Great. All right, I might change gears to a slightly different question. Again, with respect to your work at Twitter, I wonder if you could say something about what the most difficult thing you've done since you started working there. It could be anything, you know, it could be a structural thing, it could be a technical thing. What would you say is one of the most difficult or challenging things that you've done since you started at Twitter? Suvash?
Yeah, I can go. So I think one of the challenging thing, like I work for the recommendation team. So the challenging thing that it comes to working at Twitter is always the scale. Like our team focuses on the candidate generation aspect of recommendation. So like a scale is always a challenge. So I'm talking more about the technical aspect. I can give an example. For instance, if you want to compute similarity between two users to make a recommendation, two users are similar based on how many followers they have in common. That problem itself becomes extremely hard. So even applying simple algorithms at Twitter scale is extremely challenging. So that is one challenge. And also like the Twitter by nature of the product itself, tweets are like 280 characters long. You don't have a lot of context around that to make a better understand. And also they don't have a long lifespan. Things that are relevant yesterday are not relevant anymore. So being able to address that takes a lot of doing work about understanding the user behavior. So that is extremely challenging part. I think in the process side, I think I jumped into industry after directly after the undergrad, after the PhD. So it was more about adjusting a different environment. So that was a bit of a challenge initially, but yeah, I think you get used to it.
Great, thanks. And Sid, challenges for you since starting at Twitter?
Oh yeah, so one problem recently I addressed, which is the because of our Twitter has a lot of machines running a ton of different services on the same machine. So sometimes they compete for the CPU resource. It's throttled one or another, right? And then though I have to, then that's the last year. So I had to look this problem to go to the fundamental, go to the lowest part of system, try to understand why this happened. People, they have been talking about this for a while, how to different solutions. But then I gave a solution which is do a kernel patch to go to the operating system and then address the fundamental scheduling part in the bottom of the whole system, and go there. And if you understand the problem very well, you kind of like address the problem in like 100 lines of code. And with 100 lines of code, if you understand the problem, you can address the whole is that's save a like ton of money for the company, right? And but that's the first part. The second part is then to deploy that change is also very challenging because you touch the core part and on the top of the kernel, everything's running. And then everybody's worried, oh, what happened? If something goes wrong for my service, I worry about that one. And the other guy said, okay, yeah, basically it's everybody, all of party gonna have their concerns, and so you have to figure out a way to navigate the organizations and how can you touch the fundamental part without affecting the service and make all the different and make all of the parties okay with this big change. And that's part where it's very, very important. That's why when you work in a university, when you have a chance to work as a group, and because then you have to negotiate with each other. So who do that part, you do this part, and why we have to do that, how we track the migration. And sometimes you have to, okay, we have to do trade, right? I do this for you, do that for me, about all of this stuff. You're gonna do that every day for your company life. Another one is that inside the company, when I try to do those kind of work, I always think about the outside, because I don't want to trap inside Twitter, and all my work is only help Twitter. So when I do those ones, so I'm basically for this kernel stuff is open source Linux. So I have a plan to open source that part. One part is help myself to build my brand, right? And also help all of other outside open space stuff. I think that is very important when also quite challenging when you work inside organization. You have to tell yourself, okay, why I'm working on that one, and I'm not only for this organization. How can you be more? How can you let the whole world benefit from your work, right?
Right. Yeah, okay. That's fantastic, guys. Really interesting. Now we're getting towards the end of our time, and I wanted to encourage people, if they had questions, to don't forget to put them in the chat, and I'll be very happy to put them to Xi and Suvash. But let's change gears now and ask you a quick question. I'm going to jump to Suvash now and ask him a little bit about work-life balance and how he approaches that. These jobs sound really interesting and quite demanding. So how do you deal with work-life balance?
So I think like I'm lucky to be working for Twitter. Twitter they really prioritize on the work-life balance specifically, and also in my team it's properly taken care of so that people are not overstressing themselves. But like even so, there are times you get like overstress. So I think one way of taking care of work-life balance is having a clear demarcation of your work life and your other life, right? And I think that has become even more important when you're working remote, because there is no demarcation. Because when you go to work, come back, then you have sense of demarcation. So I try to have that distinction when I'm working, so that I have time for my loved ones. I have time to catch up with my friends, and also to work on something like personal development that is not related to my work. So I think, yeah, having a clear definition of your a demarcation between your work versus non-work is key. And there are times you have to push the boundaries. So if you do that, make sure after you are done with that, treat yourself, go on a vacation that you deserve, and just come back refreshed.
That sounds like great advice. Xi, would like to say a word or two about work-life balance?
Oh yes, still learning how to do that better. And yeah, so I had to control, because when I was graduate, when I did my PhD, a lot of work is done in 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., something like that. And now I have a family and you don't have a chance to do that. So I had to learn how to really go to the deep work faster. So there's a book called Deep Work, it's highly recommended. Then you have and Twitter itself is pretty good. It's very we get a one company holiday each month now. But I think it's more because you work remote, so you can work long hours than you should do if you want. But here is you have to tell yourself very clearly, okay, the people that is how can you do a deep work in shorter hours, and then you get more other 3 hours to do something else. So that's the challenging part where I'm still learning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us struggle with that one. I'm going to change gears and jump to a different question here, and that is diversity. So you both came from really interesting backgrounds, but the tech industry has a very big reputation of being fairly monochrome and not having a lot of diversity in it. I wonder if you could just say a little bit about your experience of diversity, and how you see that working in your workplace and in your perhaps in your PhD time. Maybe Suvash, you could, if you'd like to say something about that. Oh, and also, and also if you have anyone who you found particularly inspiring or role models or anything like that, that'd also be interesting to hear that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, like tech industry itself is like extremely male dominated. Like there are very less, like specifically from the gender aspect, very few companies are struggling to find female candidates. I think it's more like a systematic problem that needs to be addressed from like educating more females and encouraging them to join not just tech but like STEM in whole. I think companies are putting some effort there in terms of encouraging female future leaders in tech industry. But I think it's a long journey from where we stand here. And personally, specifically at Twitter, Twitter is very Twitter encourages a female candidates to interview with us. We actively go to Grasshopper to encourage female candidates to interview with us. I think we need to do more in that aspect, but I think specifically for females candidate, please don't hesitate, just go for it and everything is going to be all right. And specifically to role model, I have few female role model. First that comes in my mind is Grace Hopper for her amazing work in foundational work in modern language design. And more recently, not specifically related to computing, Kathleen Carico regarding her work on mRNA. So I think we are indebted to her for her foundational work, which has been instrumental in for us in fighting this global pandemic. So I think these are great examples for female to just go and take the lead.
Great. Xi?
Yeah, so actually on Twitter in our group we have 2 female principal engineers, which is you only have a few principal engineers inside whole company, right? And 2 of the female ones in our group, and then so I think especially for our new students, a lot of them going to be male, and so I have heard a lot of times people told me that they think either the females are not good doing engineering. I thought, what? And we in our whole company we have 2 principal engineers in our group, right? So and then I think that if you have that mindset, ask yourself, is that true or not, right? So and that's a very bad belief in shared by a lot of engineers in our field, which is horrible. And then if you have that mindset, think about that one, and looking for some good female engineers, you can look. You know, the software engineer, the term is defined by a female top engineer, and you can figure out who she is, right? It's not because they are not good. They super good, right? It's just because they are not encouraged participant in this one. So yeah, I
believe it was Margaret Hamilton, right, who defined it.
I just try to keep that as a secret so people can look up.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Now, look, we're running down the clock real fast now. There are a few questions in the chat, and so you can give really short, if you can manage it, if you can give a couple of really short answers here. One student, this is a quick one for you, Xi. One student is asking about how to get started on working with a Linux kernel. Just a quick, if you've got 1 or 2 sentences on how to.
There's a website called Linux Newbie, and go there. It has everything there for the people who have nothing about Linux kernel. Yeah, great. Okay, and the next one, I'm going to be really quick here. Now this one I'm going to ask the Suvash. This is a question from one of the students, I think, who's doing a team project and finding it really stressful, and they're using tools and so forth, and he's worried about that it's not having much effect on their future career. The teammates are excellent, but it's hard to catch up with them. And just wondering if you have any suggestions for the stressful situation of working in a group project and not being able to catch up with the other students.
I think one good thing about, I think in a lot, not specific to this, but like in general, like having a mentor who can guide you in the career journey is extremely important. And also like it's fine to get stressed. It's not end of the world. Sometimes you get stressed. Sometimes you do exceptionally well. It's as long as you're willing to learn. It just doesn't matter, because your it compounds over time. So that's what matters. Don't feel stressed. You're gonna make it, and like always seek help if you need.
Great. Now I'm going to ask you each a more open-ended one right near the end here, and that is, could you tell us what students need to know in order to succeed that you didn't get taught as an undergrad? So things that you think people need to know in order to succeed that you weren't taught as an undergrad. If, maybe Suvash, if you could kick off on that one.
I think personally looking back, I think for me, it was definitely like around communication and collaboration. I didn't do a lot of communication and collaboration. We didn't have that kind of setting. I think I wish I could do more in that. Another thing is like overcoming the imposter syndrome. I think that is definitely there, and like being more proactive and more empathetic about in general. I think that pays I think those are the key things.
Right, that's great. And Xi, is anything you'd like to say in terms of things that you weren't taught as an undergrad that you think people should learn?
Yeah, I think the two things very important. The first one is writing. So make sure you can write good stuff and understand. If you have time, put 50% time on working on how to do right. That you're gonna worth it, because that's the most important skill where majority people don't have, and the critical for your career. How to write in clear and express your idea. Second one is be patient. Don't too much focus on how much I got A on this, I got B on that, this term score. Think about everything in long term. Patient. A lot of career you have for example, until 60, how many years you have, and then how can you know what you're gonna do and figure out a way to tell yourself, okay, this is my life and this is worth living. I think that's the most important thing you should seek in your undergraduate. If you can have that, you can have a very happy life, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And now I'm going to close out with one last question. Suvash is going to say something, but I'll leave you with the question anyway, and then hand to Suvash. And that is, what advice would you give the next generation of computer scientists?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Suvash.
So I think don't worry too much. I think the most important thing is figure out what brings joy to your life and just pursue that. And for all the ANU grads, I think you graduating from an ANU already puts you in the top percentile of the global workforce. So you don't have anything to worry about. Just find out something that makes you happy and just go for it.
Great advice. Thank you.
So for me, I think for the new generation of scientists, please and do some study about the history of our field. Our field doing this very badly. I can know something. There's a good book called there's a good book called The Dream Machine about Jessica Lick Leader and the revolution that made computing personal. That's a great book, and students should read that one. To know some history of our field, if we can call our scientists, right? Otherwise, we are just like a bunch of tinkering and play stuff. So yeah,
turn ourselves into real scientists, huh?
Yeah. So
well, look, guys,
be more serious about what you learn. And the computer revolution haven't started yet. This is your chance, right? This is the ton of chance you can put your feet there, right? So
that's great. Look, I really enjoyed this hour, and I really want to thank the two of you for taking an hour out of your day, your busy days, your busy work days at Twitter. And I'm sure a lot of our students and alumni and academics and other staff members have really appreciated this conversation we've just had. So thank you very much one more time. And I really enjoyed it. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. We're so happy to have a chance to talk with NU people. Yeah.
Likewise. Good to see all the familiar faces here.
Yeah. All right. See you later then.
See you. Thank you.